نحمده ونصلي على رسول الكريم ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له ونشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله ربي اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. Respected viewers and listeners, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we shall try to learn a few more verses from chapter number 4, that's Al-Nisa, starting from verse number 7. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. للرجال, for men, for males, nasibum, there's a portion or a share, mimma tarak al-walidan wal-akrabun, what is left behind by parents and close relatives. Walin-nisa, similarly, women have nasib, a portion or a share, mimma tarak al-walidan wal-akrabun, out of what their parents or near of kin have left behind. Mimma kalla minhu aw kathar, whether their inheritance may be little or much. Nasibu mafruda, these are shares, obligatory, made obligations. Whether hazar al-qisma, and when the properties or the inheritance is under distribution, ulul kurba, you see close relatives around, wal yatama and orphans, wal masakin and poor and needy people, farzukum, provide them out of it something. Waqulu lahum qawlan ma'rufa, but speak to them a kind and good word. Let the distributors fear the time. If they too leave behind themselves that weak offsprings, how fearful or apprehensive they'll be about them. So let them fear Allah. And let them speak good and words based on good judgment. Of course, those who devour the properties or wealth of an orphan, zulma, unjustly or wrongfully, in fact, they fill their bellies with fire, and they'll be thrown on the day of judgment in blazing fire. Sadaqallahul Azim. These are also revolutionary verses, wherein Quran explains that when a person dies and he leaves behind some property, that becomes his inheritance, that he is going to inherit his legal heirs. And this is something happening for the first time in history of mankind. At the time of the revelation of these verses and at the advent of Prophet Muhammad's prophethood, when he announces prophethood, nobody could imagine that women can inherit anything. In fact, women were considered to be inheritance. It was in Arabs, it was in other countries also. Since polygamy was prevalent, polygamy was well spread. And when a person would die, his property, how he would leave something behind. There was no law for that. Who should get what share for son and what for father and what for others, brothers. No, it would be distributed just according to the traditions. But Quran gave a perfect law. Not only that, even when he would leave behind his wives, more than one wives, those wives were also considered as a part of inheritance. And they were distributed among the legal heirs. A son would get the wives of his father, other than his own mother, of course. And then the property or inheritance left behind by the deceased, the person dies. To whom it was to be given, according to traditional laws prevalent in Arab and other parts of the world, only those males who could take sword in their hands, and at the time of need, who could defend their tribes against the enemies, only they were entitled for inheritance. That means this law, this traditional tribal law, deprived wives, daughters, sisters, and even infant males of the rights of inheritance. They have no right. It's not just, you can see history books, you can see the traditions. You'll see this was rule in Arabia specifically, in other parts of the world. I repeat, when a person would die, and he would leave behind wealth, property, to who were the shareholders? Though there was no law who would get what share. But one law was there, that only those males can inherit that property after that deceased, left behind by deceased, who can fight, who can defend his tribe, who can lift a sword in his hand. Only they were the legal heirs. They would inherit the property. That deprived wives, because women couldn't fight, they were not allowed, expected to fight. Sisters, nothing doing. Daughters, nothing doing. Not even that. Even infant babies who were young, 5 years, 10 years old, since they couldn't fight, they were also deprived of all the rights. This law of traditional law, tribal law, this was based on injustice. Even I told you, women were distributed among the sons, that women were considered inheritance. They were considered a commodity. How could they get any share? It was not possible. Nobody could imagine women getting any share. In such circumstances, Quran gives the law of inheritance. And to start with, it says that as men have right or share and portion out of the deceased father, mother, or close relative, in the same breath, there's a share in that inheritance, inherited property, there's a right for women also, daughters and sisters and mothers and wives. There's a right, there's a share. It is for the first time in history. That's why it changed the course of human history. And this credit goes none other than Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Through him, such laws of inheritance were promulgated. Ordinances came, and which kept women at par. That's what these words are all about. Rijal means males. Lirijal, for men. Nasibum, there is a portion or a share. Mimma tarakal walidan. Out of what? What their parents leave behind. Parents die, father, mother, they die and leave behind them. There's a portion for men, of course. Wal akrabun, and what their parents leave or their close relative, depending upon the nature of relation. In the same word, it's half of us. It continues, Al-Nisa. And the same word Quran says, for women, nasibun, there's a portion. There is a share. Mimma, out of tarakal waldan walakum, what parents or close of relatives leave behind. The way it share in for males, is share for females also. It was established through Quran. Mimma kallamin, whether that inheritance may be little or kasur, or it may be much. It may be a few pennies or it may be hundreds and millions. It is to be distributed. Nasiba mafruda, nasib, shares, well determined, mafruda, made obligatory, shares. How activities that we'll see inshallah next time. How and how that inheritance is to be distributed. Son or daughter, father, mother, or brothers or sisters. It is just an introductory part of it. That firstly, basic emphasis that even women have a right as a portion, a share out of the deceased property of it is father or close relative, as males have. It is unfortunate, Quran explaining in so clear terms. Even now we see in our Muslim communities, many of them, they ignore it. Women are deprived, sisters and daughters are deprived of their due rights which Quran, Allah has given them. So this is to be kept in mind. That will make easy for us to understand the other verses. Then Quran says, وَإِذَا حَضَرَ الْقِسْمَةِ, and when that inheritance is being distributed, that means a person dies, after 3 days of mourning, that's right, 3 days mourning, that's right, and a day to be fixed, and the deceased wife to be brought before that committee, who are the distributors, elders, men of wisdom, and then daughters also, sons also, brothers, and properties to be distributed. How? That shares we shall understand inshallah next time, how Quran explains. Here is overall general instructions. وَإِذَا حَضَرَ الْقِسْمَةِ, and when the property is, that inheritance is under distribution, ulul kurba, if some close relatives also around, those close relatives, if you remember, who don't have any right, or for whom there is no portion or no share in that property, that means other close relatives other than the shareholders, if they are there, wal yatama, or some orphans around, wal masakin, or poor people, farzukuhum minhu, give them something out of it. They are distributing properly. That means, of course, with the consent of the inheritors. Because their inheritors will be there. Son, daughter, wife, mother, father, or others who are due legal heirs, who have to inherit that property with their consent, of course. If there are some orphans around, some close relatives who don't have any right over this property, they don't inherit it, give them something. وَقُولُوا لَهُمْ قَوْلًا مَعْرُوفًا, give them something out of it. وَقُولُوا لَهُمْ قَوْلًا مَعْرُوفًا, but speak to them a good and kind word. This is a solution to a problem which was out of ignorance, due to unawareness. What we do, that we believe that when a person is alive and he has a son, and his son is also married, and then his son has children also, and the son dies, that means the grandchildren, they have no right. They have no, because when their father has not acquired any property, grandfather is still alive, how come his children? They say we call it azal, and depriving those grandchildren get deprived. Okay, if according to law, it may be partly true. But imagine, this is just misuse of law when we deprive them of something. Quran in this verse says, when you are distributing property of a deceased, if there are close relatives who are not connected so closely with you, they are orphans, they may not belong to your own family, or wal masakin, they may be poor or needy people around, you pay them something. Imagine, when there are orphans in your own house, that means children of your own son. So doesn't this law apply to them too? They have preference. You will get doubly rewarded if you give them something out of it. Because they are firstly orphans. And number two, they are your kith and kin. They are the children of your son or your daughter. They are your son's children. So they deserve some special consideration. But unfortunately, we just to apply one law, we ignore hundreds and hundreds of words of Quran, wherein it is emphasized how to be careful about orphans and how to feed them, how to give them. And Quran has solution for that too, another. Because Quran says, which we'll read inshallah next time, that when you distribute, inheritance is to be distributed, the deceased person, and if a person before his death, he can go for bequest or a will, but up to 1/3 of it. 1/3. And that bequest or that will is not to be pronounced in favor of the legal heirs, because they already get the share. It is other than them. So in this will, of course optional, this is not an obligation, this is optional, you can go for it if need arises. And this is a need. When the children of your own son are left high and dry, they are orphans, they are needy people. So 1/3, isn't it in the scheme of things, how Quran explains, that you make a bequest, you made a will out of the 1/3 of the property for your grandchildren. So how come they will be deprived? And they will get nothing out of the property. Why not? They'll surely get. And one more, that we shall learn inshallah next time. That Quranic laws are based on justice. It is divine. Allah knows our needs better than we know ourselves. Shares are distributed and ordinances laid. Instructions are given. based on human needs. And Quran, Islam deprive orphans of our own house? Quran has a special law for this, which is repeated dozens of times in Quran. Just for upholding one law, we negate dozens of words of Quran. So that is the solution which Quran gives in this verse itself. By the Hadar al-Kisma, when the property of a deceased is under distribution, Ulul Qurba you find around the near of kin, or relatives, wal yatama are orphans, wal masakin and the needy ones. Farzuquhum minhu. You provide them something out of it. But as I told you, as I explained in Hadith, that it to be done with the consent of those people who are around, who are the legal heirs. But only mature ones. If among the shareholders there are minors, you cannot give anything out of that, because their consent will not be upheld. They have not yet reached the mature age where they can decide things for their future. So there's a way out for this. And the next thing I told you, there's a Quran has left an option clearly that a person before his death can make a will or bequest up to 1/3, not exceeding 1/3. Why? There's an option. Just so that maybe the close relative may get deprived in their favor and they'll get it out of it. So, and number 3, Quran at dozens of places emphasizes safeguarding the interests of orphans, even if they are far away, even if they do not belong to you, even if they may not belong to your own community. Irrespective of creed, color, and caste, be careful caretakers of orphans. Take care, safeguard their interests. How come when there are orphans in your own family, can a true believer ignore them? If he ignores, that means he is not a perfect believer. About this Quran says, أَفَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِبَعْضِ الْكِتَابِ وَتَكْفُرُونَ? Do you believe in part of the book? We suit you. وَتَكْفُرُونَ بِبَعْضِ, and you reject or disbelieve in part of the verses, and some verses we don't suit your scheme of things. Quran says, one who is selective in his faith. فَمَا جَزَاءُ مَنْ يَفْعَلُ ذَلِكَ إِلَّا خِزْيٌ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا. For such persons, there is a disgrace and humiliation in this worldly life. وَيَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ يُرَدُّونَ إِلَىٰ أَشْرِ الْعَذَابِ. On the day of judgment, they'll be dragged towards hellfire. Because they believe they are selective in their faith. They understand or implement versus we suit their own interests. And we go against their interests, they reject them. They don't take care. That's the matter of orphans. And that orphans, which may be orphans of your own sons. So can you ignore them? And then say the Quran says they are deprived. How come? Quran doesn't deprive them. It is you. You are depriving them of their rights, due rights. Orphans have every right on me. Why not? They belong to my community. They belong to my own family. Even if they may not be related to me, they have I am under obligation to help them. How shouldn't they help my own orphans? Quran gives a beautiful explanation here that when you are distributing property is being distributed out there, then there are orphans around or closer relatives or you give them something. Why? Let the distributors who are there distributing that time fear. This answer to that question. Azal, what we say, grandchildren get automatically deprived. See, Quran says, let them, distributors, fear that time. If they too leave behind after their death weak offsprings, how much fearful apprehensive they will be about them. Well, they will be apprehensive of their own offspring, weak offspring if they die in this state. So why shouldn't they take care of other weak and needy people around? So let them fear Allah. And let them say word based on good judgment and decide matter in a goodly manner. Because indeed those people who devour wealth of orphans, zulma, unjustly and wrongfully, they fill their bellies with fire. وَيَسْتَيَصْلَوْنَ سَعِيرًا, and they'll be roasted on the day of judgment in a blazing fire. So imagine, such are the verses about orphans, safeguarding orphans, their interests. And I say, if you take account of Quran, if you bail out those your grandchildren, if your son has died in between, you take care, you will get triple sawab out of that. Number one, you are helping an orphan. That's a sawab. Number two, you are helping a needy and poor person because they are poor. They have not inherited anything from their parents, so get double sawab. And number three, you are helping a near of kin. Because in Quran, time and again, when spending wealth in holy cause and good causes, preference to be given to near of kin. They are your near of kin. You get triple sawab for helping them. Do you still feel they get deprived? And you deprive them simply on the basis of one law, whereas there are dozens and because of what's emphasizing, like what's like this, they don't deprive orphans of their due rights, where they were under obligation to help them. Those people who devour wealth or estates of orphan, zulma, unjustly. They fill their bellies with fire. They'll be roasted in blazing fire on the day of judgment. So be careful about orphans. Sadaqallahu al-Azim wa sadaqa rasuluhu an-Nabiyul Kareem walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.